Good morning, everyone. This is James Ellsmore, and welcome to this informational session about the Virtual Island Summit Ambassador Program. You can see we have over 50 people joined already, and I know we had a lot of people who will be watching this on record, so thank you for being with us. If you attended sessions last year, hopefully you know the drill, so please jump on the chat below, quickly introduce yourself, say hello, and I want to highlight, make sure you select all panelists and attendees, not just all panelists. So I see Janita, James, Oda, you all have messaged only panelists, so it would be nice if you could resend that message selecting all panelists and attendees so everyone can see you. While we're waiting for a few more people to join, I'm going to launch a quick poll. So just curious to see where you are coming from or what region you're interested in represent. It doesn't have to be where you are right now necessarily. Just take the time to have a quick vote. I can see everyone's getting the hang now, making sure they send their messages to all panelists, attendees. So hi Angie in Vancouver Island, Robert in the Netherlands, Petra in Ireland Islands, lots of familiar names here. Jack in Cape Cod, Yulia in Ukraine, John in Grenada, Clay in PI, Mario Timor-Leste. You're up early, Mario, so thanks for joining. Okay, just sharing the poll results. Not surprising, Caribbean, as always, is very well represented, and I know we're biased on the time zones today, so Caribbean, North America, and Europe are the three leading places. But congratulations for the Caribbean representing, as always. Nice to see everyone. Okay, and with that, we'll get started then. So thanks so much for joining. We are going to just run through very briefly the Ambassador Program. This is a new feature that we launched this year. This is the second Virtual Island Summit, and we had a lot of lessons learned from last year, and what we thought was really we wanted to do something further to expand the program from last year. And by having people who are physically in islands around the world and other island-related places, then it's a good opportunity to help make this global, virtual, nebulous event into something that's a bit more physical and real local. And so we want the Ambassadors Program really to be the faces on the ground to help promote this and help involve local people. Okay, so for those of you that didn't attend the Virtual Island Summit last year, we'll just briefly tell you about that. That was our first ever session, was a little bit of a test, and on our side of Island Innovation actually came together in 4 months. So it was a bit of a whirlwind 4 months. But we were really happy with the results, and this year, having so much extra time, we feel like we can really launch this into an even bigger and better event. The summit is free to sign up. Part of our model is that we want to excuse me a second. Part of our model is that we really want to encourage people to be able to access the material for free. So the conference is funded by sponsors, but not by a cost to attend. We had various formats and various themes throughout the week. People could join in all the sessions, although it was a lot. I don't think anyone did that. Or could just choose the sessions that were most interesting and relevant to them. All sessions recorded, you could watch them online. And we had over 100 speakers and over 4,000 registrants, which was really amazing for our first event. On average, between 150 and 200 people attended each session. And as it says here, over 100 island communities represented. So we did particularly well with the Caribbean, Europe, North America, because those are regions where we have strong links, and we partnered with the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. But this year we're going to make a push to help with Asia Pacific. And I realized the time zone of this today was not the best for that. So in the future, we'll try and make sure things are more accessible to people in Asia Pacific as well, because we want that region to be well represented. The idea of the summit is also to bridge, what I like to say is create digital bridges between islands. How does an island that is an independent country like Barbados relate with a territory like Puerto Rico or the British Virgin Islands, or with an island that might be part of a larger country, so the islands of Scotland, or smaller islands in other countries. There's a lot of issues happening in those places, ranging from sustainability and climate change and waste disposal, fisheries management, but also things like public health provision, education, health. And so we want to create a platform to allow these places that on some levels are very different, but on others have a lot in common, to be able to relate to each other. And so our ambassadors program is going to be something that will allow us to do that even more this year. And can just see we're up to 74 people joining, which is really amazing. So thank you all for being with us today. You can, as I said before, you can introduce yourself in the chat, but also we have a Q&A box. It's easier for us if you type questions in the Q&A as opposed to in the chat. So feel free to start dropping questions in the Q&A box as we go through, and we will come to answer all of those at the end. So now I will hand over to Sasha, who is the project manager for our Ambassadors and Hubs program, and she's going to tell you a little bit more.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sasha. I am located in sunny Jamaica. And as Jim said, I'm the project manager for this project. So for the ambassador role, the main purpose of having this role this year is to have a sort of local presence in the islands and in the countries for this global event. So, you know, as James was telling you a bit about the Virtual Islands Summit, it is completely virtual, totally online. So we'd just like to have a bit of a local presence and organization from these local islands. So we've broken down the role structure into 4 main parts. So community engagement, that's mainly identifying a target audience for the summit. So persons who you think would be interested based on your experience with your island locally, and just engaging them, introducing them to the Virtual Island Summit, getting persons signed up, you know, just engaging your local island. Event planning, so this will include coordination for events. This will be both the local events, and we also have a hub program this year. So also organizing and planning out those local events that will be taking place in each island as well. And sponsorship proposal delivery. So the Virtual Island Summit also has sponsors. So a big part of, you know, putting this event together is locating potential sponsors, reaching out to them with a proposal, you know, getting them involved. And there is a commission structure available this year as well for you guys as ambassadors. We'll get into that a bit later. And also brand marketing. So, you know, as an ambassador, you're the face of Island Innovation and the Virtual Island Summit. So, you know, you'll be just representing us in maybe social media, posting, videos, radio interviews, stuff like that, that we would like you guys to take part in as well. So that's basically it for the role. And we also have, so we have online with us as panelists, Stephen Snyder and Sangeeta Lotus. They were with us last year and they basically became our first ambassadors. And it was through their involvement in the Virtual Island Summit that we actually came up with the idea of having ambassadors this year. So we have them both online and they're going to introduce themselves to you and kind of give you an idea of what their experience was last year, so you have an idea of what to expect as well. So I'll hand over to Stephen, who will go first, to introduce himself and give you his briefing.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you guys are in the world. My name is Stephen Snyder. I was born and raised in Mandeville, Jamaica, but I'm now living in Boston. I am a student here, but also working for a startup that does sustainable investing. And I had met James at a conference last year and really gravitated to this idea of connecting all of the different islands around the world to learn from each other as I'm studying sustainable development and want to contribute to my island home. So when he reached out and asked to help with some promotion materials, was very interested because we were sending materials to people all over the world, asking them to participate in this, something that is very new. So it was an opportunity to kind of get out of my comfort zone and practice the sales and practice the reaching out. And it was really interesting and really fun because we got to organize a session around climate finance and what are blue bonds, what are green bonds. So this is a real opportunity to craft a topic, a session that you are interested in, and find the speakers that will address and provide their expertise so that you can learn from this opportunity as well. So beyond the reaching out and the planning, I think it's also a really great opportunity to be a brand ambassador for your country and for what is going on within your community, exposing great activities and great people that you know of and who you already work with who need to have a platform in this global world. So that's really what all I had to share with you guys. It's a really great opportunity. It's really fun to work with all of these people, and it's a really great chance to see what is going on out there. Hand it back over to you, Sasha. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great stuff. And next, thank you very much, Stephen. Next up, we'll have Sangeeta, who will give us her experience as well. Over to you, Sangeeta.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Stephen and Sasha. So I am Sangeeta Loudis. I'm based here in London, actually sunny London today. And I met James actually just via LinkedIn last year. We started chatting on LinkedIn. We shared same sort of ideas around sustainability and a love for the Caribbean, particularly. I actually got married in the Caribbean, and I lived briefly out in the Cayman Islands, and very interested in just seeing where I could help with what the islands are sort of facing going forward. So I became an ambassador, honorary ambassador, and last year, mainly I think what I feel that I was really enjoyed from the whole process was the option to be able to work with people from across the world. I think it's a very exciting time where we can actually connect in this way. And I think the actual process of being an ambassador made me think about various things which I hadn't actually looked at from a sustainability space. So I think it's a great way of giving back, but also of learning as you're doing. And my sort of specific background here, I've been a lawyer for many years, and more recently I've moved across and I do marketing. But in my time as a lawyer, we looked a lot at green financing and green bonds, which have become more and more sort of the type of financing that a lot of the banks, etc., are looking at. And so one of the things that I got involved in with James and with Island Nation was on the summit last year, we put together a specific session looking at green bonds and blue bonds and how that could be of use to various companies. And sort of going forward, I think what I feel that all of us can do as ambassadors is try to bring awareness of this amazing conference to our own networks. And what I'm hoping this year to do more is to sort of highlight it really over here, where we're sort of there's a lot of movement around finance and sustainable financing, and see where we can try and sort of bridge. I like to see myself as being able to bridge between the project owners of the sustainable projects and the people who are actually doing the financing and funding. So hopefully that gives a little bit of an insight into why I think this is an amazing opportunity and amazing conference to be involved in. Over to you, Sasha.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. It's great to hear your experiences, and I hope that does help persons get more of an idea of what we're trying to do with the ambassador program. So thank you very much. All right, so moving on. So just to give you guys an idea of the benefits that ambassadors will receive, we've sort of listed them out here. So, you know, you'll be getting experience in project management and event planning, as this is what you'll be doing majority of the time in your role as ambassadors. Recognition and exposure representing the brand. So, you know, as James mentioned, there were over 4,000 participants in the Virtual Island Summit last year, and we're expecting it to be even bigger this year. Our aim is for 10,000 participants this year. So you get a lot of exposure, you know, reaching out to people, being a part of the virtual summit as well. So that's a great plus for you guys as well. The ability to represent your country or your island and network with policymakers, entrepreneurs, and NGO leaders. Your photo and profile will be featured also on our summit website. So that's a big networking point for you guys as well. So up next, access to networking, job and scholarship opportunities through our network. So as I mentioned, it's a large network of, you know, persons globally, all over the world, and you will have access to this firsthand being an ambassador. Skill building and training sessions that will have over the few months that you will be an ambassador, and these will be, you know, personal benefits to you. Paid commission for any conference sponsor, and I mentioned this before, so we will have sponsorships, proposals being sent out by you guys, persons that you will be targeting as well based on your local knowledge. And if it is that you do get a sponsor confirmed, there will be commission paid out to you, and the structure for that will be finalized as we get into the program. A personalized recommendation letter received at the end of the period. So this will be provided to you by our founder, James, who you met earlier. And, you know, just future updates and opportunities, scholarships, and more. So you'll be a part of a major global network, a huge network. And in doing that and networking, you'll be exposed, and that's the main benefit here for ambassadors. Okay, so we did based on a lot of the questions that came over from you guys when you were applying, we had a FAQ that we've designed for our main repeat questions. So what's the duration of the role? So the role will run for a period of 6 months. So we'll begin in April and it will end around the end of September. And what would be required from you is just a few hours per week. So it's not a full 9 to 5, won't be taking up all of your time. So 6 months, a few hours per week is the duration and the timeline for the role. Am I able to take part in the program if I'm not currently residing in an island? So yes, you are able to take part in the program and you're able to represent your island without living there. So a lot of persons have moved. I think a few persons here in the chat have also told us, you know, where they're representing, but they're living somewhere else. So you are still able to take part in the program. Can I participate if English is not my first language? Yes, you can. You know, we're encouraging persons from multiple backgrounds to join us. A bit of knowledge is required, but you know, we will encourage you to apply and we'll work with you to ensure that you're able to carry out your tasks. Is this a paid position? So the ambassador program, it is an internship and it's not a paid position. However, you know, the commission structure is in place for you in the event that you do secure sponsors, and there's no fees or anything that you are required to pay. There's no travel. It's 100% virtual, which goes into the next question. Will ambassadors be required to travel? So no, it's totally virtual. Event is virtual. Your role will be virtual. So you're not required to travel or incur any expenses. And what's next? So at the end of this webinar, we would encourage for everyone who has not signed up or applied to head on over to our website. So that's www.virtualislandsummit.com and fill out the application form. Once that's done, we'll reach out to you within the next 2 to 3 weeks with the next steps of your application. And I will hand back over to James, who will take any other questions and continue with the rest. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks so much for that overview, Sasha, and Stephen and Sangeeta for your inputs as well. That's really helpful. hopefully everyone, that gives you a little bit of insight into the ambassador program, what we're trying to do. Obviously, this is a new program. As we said, Sangeeta and Stephen kind of became our ambassadors after the conference, but they were very much involved, and they kind of inspired us to formalize this position. So there's a little bit of evolution that will happen here with the role. A couple of quick questions I want to address, and if you want to drop them, ideally in the Q&A, but in the chat's fine too. I can see that. I can answer any other questions. In terms of the commission program, there's no kind of, we don't want you to feel like you have to be out there looking for sponsors for us. That's an optional role. So we still welcome you to be an ambassador, and we won't force you to be out kind of hunting down sponsors. But obviously we wanted to make some kind of reward there for anyone who does help us bring in money. Obviously it is important that we are able to keep this conference free and have different sponsors. If that's something you're interested in, there will be a training session on that. We don't want people sending off hundreds of emails out into the out to random companies, but we do encourage you, if there's kind of existing connections or local connections that are interested. But if you're selected, there'll be more training on that if you're interested in the role. Marcelo just said, is this the right page? Yeah, so it's islandinnovation.co/summit, and then there's the ambassadors page. Or if you go to virtualislandsummit.com, there's also, you can click ambassadors there, and there'll be a link to the application. There was also a question from Genève about wanting a little bit more detail about, for people who aren't living on their home island. So we realize that there are people who might be applying who are, for example, live in and from Jamaica, and their link is very obvious, and they are kind of from and living on their island, and they want to help promote that island. But Sangeeta, for example, is from London, had briefly lived in the Cayman Islands, but living in London, there's a lot of relevant things to the virtual summit happening there, with various NGOs, representatives of the British Overseas Territories, for example. So if you are even not from an island and not living on an island, all that we ask is that you kind of justify that in your application. If you are from London and living in London, for example, totally fine, but just tell us, kind of allow us to make sense of why you're interested in this, and what kind of links you can do. For example, the Hubs program, which we'll have a separate webinar on, that will overlap a little bit with the ambassadors. We'll be encouraging ambassadors to launch and hold in-person events where possible, and not join on their own to take part in the summit. So that could be something that would happen really well in London, with links to various island organizations that are there, just as an example. Trish asked, what sort of time commitment are you looking for from ambassadors? This is not going to be a huge commitment. We are aiming for a 1 hour kind of webinar session that will, or group meeting that will be held around every 2 weeks. And we encourage you to participate in that. There will be a requirement to attend a minimum percentage of those, but also they'll be available on record. And we realize people have works and other things. We'll have a group, probably WhatsApp or Slack group, for all of our ambassadors to interact. And so we'll be posting kind of an occasional request. If we're looking for a speaker on, let's say, electric vehicles, we might post that in there and say, does anyone have any recommendations? Again, you may or may not. So that'll be the types of things involved. And then there'll be extra things. So we'll give you a media training session. A big part of this is we want to be able to engage with local island media, local island newspapers or radio. But the question was last year for a lot of them, how this links in with their specific islands. And so if we have someone who's physically based there, who might be able to do a radio interview or a TV interview about their involvement, it helps with that kind of media connection. But we're talking a couple of hours per week between now and September at most. So it's not going to be an overwhelming commitment, and some of the activities will be fairly flexible. And I'm really glad to see the diversity of people, both in terms of countries and backgrounds here. Feel free, for those of you who are sending in your LinkedIn profiles, to connect, but obviously we will connect all of the ambassadors here. All the successful ambassadors will make sure are connected. I will just run down. So another question on the sponsorship. Angie said, can the sponsorship be customized for each island? or have an island-specific page added per ambassador hub. So there's going to be a lot of flexibility here. For example, the Hubs program will go into more in the next session, but what works in Vancouver Island might not necessarily work in Papua New Guinea, for example. There's going to be differences, and so we're going to be very flexible in these roles, both for ambassadors and hubs, to make sure it can adapt locally. Just briefly, the idea of the hubs is, as I said, physical events that will take place and allow people to be in person and to engage with each other on an issue. And we've had people applying for hubs from small community halls on small islands in Scotland to the World Bank in Washington, DC. And for me, the idea of having these physical groups happening in different places is the most exciting thing in this whole range of places. I saw someone just raise their hand. If you can type in your questions instead, that would be better. Okay, there's some more questions. Let me just run through these. And some of these I might have answered, but I'll re-answer them again just to make sure. So Angie also said, are we using collaboration platform? We'll explore this, either Slack. We use Slack internally. Sometimes WhatsApp is just as easy. So we'll explore Slack or WhatsApp or a combination of the two. But definitely we want the ambassadors to also be part of an ongoing community. So like we said, after the summit itself, we will share things like scholarships or opportunities, or because I get a lot of things over my desk every day from different organizations that we try and share those. So we'll make sure that the ambassador group becomes an ongoing community using a platform like WhatsApp just to share information. Udish says, why is the role only 6 months and its renewal? So the summit takes place in around 6 months. So the idea is for this role, this year it's focused around the Virtual Island Summit 2020 happening in November. So that role will be between now and the Virtual Summit. Maybe there'll be a little bit of follow-up after the Virtual Summit. To be honest, we're still figuring out some of the details around this role of how it will go after this and for the session next year. So there may be an opportunity to extend, or we may just ask people to reapply for next year. That's to be confirmed, but the main focus of this role is between now and September. How will the sponsorship money be used? So the event, there was a lot of costs around the event, hosting it. So there's obviously paying my own and Sasha's wages. We've been working full time on this for the last couple of months, and we'll be up until November. But also hosting the platform, hosting the website, various other costs around that. So the sponsorship money just requires is what we use to make sure that we can run this conference and keep it free for community members to join. Because part of doing this is really to allow people to be able to participate in this kind of forum that otherwise might not have the money to fly to one of these big international conferences or even participate in them because the tickets are expensive. And so that's the idea of the Virtual Island Summit. We want to keep it free. Sharon said, I'm from the UK, presently living in Jamaica. Are more ambassadors required for Jamaica? So we have not decided exactly how we will do whether we'll have more than one ambassador for places. For example, Jamaica is obviously 3.5 million people. Some of the smaller islands where we've had applicants from are a few hundred people. So in Jamaica, we're more than happy to have more than one ambassador, for example. And the larger islands will definitely have multiple ambassadors. So that we'll do that on a case-by-case basis, depending on, as we review the applications. We obviously don't want too many in one place, but if there are multiple ambassadors in one country or region, that obviously opens up the door for collaboration. So don't worry about applying for if someone else is already in the role. Petra says a couple of hours a week is too much as a working mom, but it's too much for me as a working mom, but my main aim with being an ambassador would be to help spread awareness of the summit, help getting speakers and participants. So Petra, in your case, completely understandable. When I say a couple, that's obviously kind of max 2. There's going to be flexibility in the role. As we say, we're still kind of, I wanted to say that to make sure that there was some kind of commitment there. But obviously you're welcome to support the summit and be in touch and be involved on multiple levels. and appreciate if things change or the situation changes. I think some weeks there won't be too much to do. Obviously, around the summit, we might be asking for a little bit more engagement and help with media roles, but the role will definitely be flexible. But we still want to say that there is kind of an hour or two's commitment each week, particularly with joining the group sessions, where all the ambassadors will get together and discuss around issues and share information. So we want to have a bit of a community. So I don't want to say it's kind of no commitment. And obviously, if you feel like you don't have the time to dedicate for this, then completely understand. And we appreciate you still kind of helping us get the word out around the summit, and can find other ways to be in touch as a supporter through the Facebook group, through the LinkedIn group, etc. Rooney says, how can you propose topics for the conference as an ambassador? So we will invite the ambassadors. I mean, this is open. Anyone can submit a topic through the website or nominate a speaker, but with the ambassadors, as we develop the program, we will kind of have group discussions, and we will put out requests to our ambassador group just for some input on that. And again, that's kind of can be as much or as little as you want. If you want to get really involved, like Stephen Sangeeta did last year with running a session, then that might be an option. If you just want to nominate some speakers or make some suggestions of topics, then that's also fine. There'll be different levels of involvement there, depending on your interest. I'm just going to skip the questions. So we had a few more questions about how many ambassadors per region or per country. We will take that on a case-by-case basis, as I said. We don't want to have too many in one place, but equally, if it's a larger country, there's opportunities there to have more than one, so there'll be a bit of flexibility there. Can I participate in the ambassador program as well as being a hub partner? Yes, there will be an opportunity to, there'll be some overlap there. So the ambassadors are more going to be aimed at individuals. The hubs will be partners with organizations. So one ambassador could be in that organization or could collaborate with those hubs to help host a physical event. So there'll be a little bit of overlap there, but there will need to be like a host organization to host a hub event, not just kind of one individual. So someone else raised that, Maya raised the question about having ambassadors who are not from islands or living on islands. Again, there are places like London where there's a lot of island related activities happening. We don't want the majority, we want the majority of people who are going to be ambassadors to be from islands or living on islands. But at the same time, places like Brussels, London, Washington, DC, they're important political centers that a lot happens that affects other islands as well. So having ambassadors in facilities is part of this conversation. We don't want to say you have to be from the islands you're representing, because some people might have been living there and still make an important contribution. Equally, if you are someone who's from an island and has migrated elsewhere, we don't want to say you can't be part either. We understand people have a lot of different relations there, so it depends on that individual. I'm going to skip through these questions. I'm just going to see if there's anything. Yeah, so Genevieve said, people who are residents on specific islands, can they form a committee to centralize and coordinate efforts? That will be more through the hub program. So an ambassador could spearhead a hub, for example, but they would be slightly different. The ambassadors are the individuals. The hubs are require more than one person to be involved, and we'll explain that in the next webinar, which if you click on the hubs tab on the Virtual Island Summit website, you can see that webinar. I think it's the 24th of March, later on this month, and you can join. And maybe if Sasha's there, you can post in the chat the link to sign up for that webinar. So Mario asked, is there a formal agreement or a legal agreement? We're not going to make you sign kind of a legally binding contract. We will have an agreement that is non-binding, just so we and you are on the same page. So if you apply, you'll be sent that agreement. It kind of reflects the PowerPoint today, and there shouldn't be anything unexpected there. You can sign the agreement, but equally, it's not going to be legally binding. So if your situation changes or there's something out of your control, we understand that and just ask that you communicate with us if for whatever reason you can't continue the ambassador role. But the communication there is key. And obviously, if you think that you're not going to participate, bear in mind that you could take someone else's opportunity. So please, only take the position if it's something that you do feel somewhat serious about being involved in. And then people asking, how can I find out about other people participating? So we'll definitely encourage kind of a wide range of islands to participate. Once we select the ambassadors, we will put everyone's names and locations on our website as well. So if you're applying to be ambassador, your name and photo will be on the website kind of, with the region that you're based in or representing. But we'll make sure that you get introduced to other people in your region or with similar interests. Okay, I think the other questions, I think we've answered most of these questions. Final one from Kieran. Yes, we will be recording this. So this has been recorded. We'll post it on our YouTube channel and send out to everyone who registered to attend. So you'll get a copy of this video as well. You also, if you want to email us, you can contact Sasha. It's Sasha, SASHA, @islandinnovation.co. And you can email me also, James, @islandinnovation.co. Sasha just dropped her email address in the chat. So any more questions, please do get in touch over there. And we look forward to reviewing your applications. Thanks so much for joining us today, and see you at the summit in September. Bye, everyone.